And not surprisingly, psilocybin increased measures previously shown to be sensitive to hallucinogenic drugs. So there are perceptual changes such as visual illusions, greater emotionality like increased joy, peacefulness, less frequently fear or anxiety, cognitive changes such as a sense of meaning, sometimes suspiciousness. But by far and away the most interesting effect was that in most volunteers, psilocybin produced large increases on scales, questionnaires that are designed to measure naturally occurring mystical experiences, or non-dual states of awareness, if you will. So this shows results from 2 of these scales in the dose effect study, just showing that we're getting dose-related increases. The Hood scale had never before been used after drug administration. And this just shows the percentage of the volunteers in the dose effect study who met criteria for having a so-called complete mystical experience. And I'll describe those criteria in just a second. But the point here is that about it was 72% of volunteers in this study after 20 and or 30 milligrams per 70 kilogram reported having a full mystical experience. So here are the phenomenological dimensions of this mystical experience, and I think it'll be familiar to this audience. Unity is a core feature. This is the sense of interconnectedness of all people and things. All is one, pure consciousness, sometimes described as the void. Sacredness or reverence, a noetic quality, a sense of encountering ultimate reality. People have the sense that this experience is more real and more true than everyday waking consciousness. Deeply felt positive mood often accompanies this experience. Universal joy, love, peace, a sense of heart opening. Transcendence of time and space occurs. Timelessness, past and present collapse into the present moment. Space becomes absolutely vast. And finally, ineffability and paradoxicality. These kinds of experiences elude description. So, we did a lot of the work with questionnaires, but we also had volunteers write down their experiences. And this is what one volunteer wrote the evening after his experience. In my mind's eye, I felt myself instinctively taking the posture of prayer in my head. I was on my knees, hands clasped in front of me, and I bowed to this force. I wasn't scared or threatened in any way. It was more about reverence. I've highlighted the defining features of the mystical experience here. I was showing my respect. I was humbled and honored to be in this presence. This presence was a feeling, not something that I saw or heard. I only felt it, but it felt more real than any reality I have experienced. And it was a familiar place too, one I'd felt before. It was when I surrendered to this that I felt like I let go. I was gone, or should I say this earthly part of me was. It was still on the couch in some suspended form of animation awaiting my return. I was in the void. This void had a strange and indescribable quality to it, that there was nothing to it but this feeling of unconditional and undying love. It felt like my soul was basking in the feeling of this space. I have no idea how long this lasted. Time and space did not exist there. It was all different manifestations of this feeling of love that I found myself wrapped in. So that's immediately after session. So what happens later? So here's 2 months later. They come back, and we ask them questions like, well, looking back, how personally meaningful was this experience you had 2 months ago? This is a rating from everyday experience, once a week, once a month, once a year, up to the top 10, top 5, single most personally meaningful experience in my life. The fill bars show psilocybin, stripe bars show the control compound methylphenidate. Importantly here, 70% of these people are saying this is in the top 5 most meaningful experiences of my life. They would compare it to the birth of a child, a firstborn child, or the death of a parent. It had salience totally stunned me, frankly, when we began this research. And here's the answer to the question, how spiritually significant was this experience? Here we have fully, again, 70% saying it's in the top 5, but fully a third of these people who are already interested in spirituality and have practices saying it's the single most spiritual significant experience of their lives. And this shows data from the dose effect study. Again, just the rating of the top 5 most spiritually significant experiences. And in this case, we're getting about 80% of people saying it's in the top 5 most spiritually significant experiences of their life. And if you look at the single most spiritually significant experience, it's about 45% of these. So it's really replicable across these studies. Now, this is showing data again at 2 months in which volunteers answer a whole series of questions. And psilocybin is showing in the dark bar, the striped bar is showing methylphenidate. You can see significant elevations here. And so volunteers here are attributing to the psilocybin session positive changes in attitudes about life and self, about mood, altruism and positive social effects, and behavior changes. So just to give you a sense of what they're endorsing here, the volunteers are saying about attitudes that they have more personal integration, greater inner authority. There's more meaning, enthusiasm, patience, optimism, authenticity, and self-confidence. In terms of mood, increased love, open-heartedness, joy, inner peace, decreased sadness, anger, guilt, anxiety. In terms of the altruistic effects, more sensitivity, perceptive, compassionate, tolerant, increased positive relationships, greater need for service to others. And this shows just in the dose effect study, these same 4 domains, and it's just showing you get nice dose-related increases in the endorsement of these sorts of effects. So that's going out to 1 or 2 months. Here we are at 14 months follow-up, asking some of the same questions. So this is how spiritually significant was the experience. The green bar was 2 months after methylphenidate. The yellow bar was 2 months after psilocybin. The blue bar is 14 months after psilocybin. So there's no diminution here of these effects. They're sustained and sustained robustly. And not only that, a different analysis that we did shows that the attribution of these kinds of effects at 14 months is directly a function of the endorsement of mystical experience immediately after the session. So this isn't about just a psilocybin effect, because the strength of the psilocybin effect isn't what's driving this. It's whether or not people endorse having a mystical experience. So it's that full gamut. And then, interestingly, besides these questionnaires, what we've shown is that psilocybin occasions change, or these mystical experiences change personality. And this is really interesting because personality is thought to be a pretty fixed characteristic of an individual after the age of about 25. And what we're showing here is increases in those people who have the mystical experience, increases in this personality domain of openness. Openness is a really interesting factor in personality because it underlies creativity and openness and tolerance to new ideas. In addition to the volunteers reporting these effects, they were validated when we quizzed community observers. So we did telephone ratings with friends, family members, colleagues at work, and had them rate the volunteer on a number of dimensions, and this simply confirmed the kinds of positive changes that were being reported by the volunteers. So again, reverting to their own words, here now we're asking them at 14 months just to reflect back and tell us what you remember about this experience. So here's one person. The part that continues to stick out for me was the knowing and the seeing and the experience in every sense and fiber of my being that all things are connected. Another one, the sense that all is one, that I experience the essence of the universe, the knowing that God asks nothing of us except to receive love. The feeling of no boundaries, where I didn't know where I ended and my surroundings began. Somehow I was able to comprehend what oneness is. Finally, the understanding that in the eyes of God, all people, abused, abusers, Christian fundamentalists, Muslim fundamentalists, atheists, were all equally important and equally loved by God. And that given the proper circumstances, I could be any one of them. So let me now segue into our ongoing work with psilocybin and meditation. And we believe these can be viewed as complementary techniques for exploration of the nature of self and mind. So recent neuroimaging studies show that meditation and psilocybin produce strikingly similar decreases in brain circuits responsible for self-referential processing.